Hey and welcome, I'm Hammeh, and as we're enjoying, I hope, Overwatch Anniversary with all of its shinies and goodies, a few thoughts from me on where we might be with Overwatch 2 and how Overwatch lore over the next few months will fit into that. A few job hiring postings out of the Overwatch camp might give us a little insight into where Overwatch 2 is right now and how lore and the game may well be proceeding for at least, I think, the next 6 to 9 months. Timecode's in the description if you'd like to skip. Let's get stuck in. As Overwatch fans, particularly if you're a fan of the story like myself, and I'm sure many of you are if you watch this channel and my videos, we are in a little bit of a quiet time after a hero release in the form of Echo. However, looking on the Blizzard website, there are a number of interesting positions popping up and also clues as to where Overwatch 2's general development might be, as well as what we as Overwatch fans may expect in terms of lore and story over the coming months. Blizzard is hiring for a whole bunch of positions for Overwatch 2 right now. One of these is a narrative designer position. Now, the significance for this is that it may well not be a direct replacement per se for Michael Chu's role when he left as lead writer and sort of a lead on the story of Overwatch earlier this year. However, it does give some interesting hints as to what Michael Chu was working on, as well as the general perhaps position of Overwatch 2 and its development at this point in time. Now, a narrative designer job title is someone who, well, designs story. However, that can be from a very practical perspective in terms of writing and world building. It can also dip into the technical and in the implementation as well. A holistic approach to getting a story created and written and a world built, and then implementing it into something like a game or a TV series or similar. Blizzard are looking for, according to the job posting, an experienced narrative designer with 4 or more years of industry experience with at least one shipped AAA game title in a writing or game design role. I'm guessing the amount of experienced 4 years narrative designers watching this channel is at best in the single digits. And hey, amazing if that's the case. Hello, you have an awesome job. I'd love to talk to you about it someday. This is probably not a role us inexperienced folk will be throwing our CVs in for, but it does sound a cool thing to do. Now, what strikes me is that this description of a role for Overwatch 2 is a combination of an end-to-end process of designing narrative. There are the writing tasks and the writing work in there, scripted mission dialogue, hero dialogue, but also pieces of game design and also technical implementation, pacing out gameplay to help tell story, and a highly collaborative position that needs work with all disciplines as to how the story actually integrates into the gameplay. There's also support with the voice acting and directing work that we know that Michael Chu used to do, attending VO sessions to ensure that their vision is being properly communicated to the voice actor, and prior VO session guidance and direction is ideal. In terms of the technical side, a strong background in game scripting with Blueprint, Lua, or other scripting languages is critical. Some exposure to VO system design is also heavily recommended, which is very, very interesting. There's a definite technical element there. So a pretty chunky job. Write the work, help to maintain the vision of the universe, write dialogue, then actually help working with other teams in terms of implementing it into mission structure, then actually going to VO studio sessions and being present and helping direct the recording, and then last but not least, actually even implementing it into the game using various scripting languages, tools and platforms. There's a piece on actually being technically proficient in game editors to implement work into the mission and actual maps. So once you've written it, once you've worked with the team on implementing it and the pacing of the gameplay and the story together and the voice lines, then you're actually putting it into the mission and maps through scripting languages and things itself. So it's a real end-to-end process. That is pretty chunky in terms of an amount of work to do. And that's going to have to be done for archives events like Retribution and similar, voice line updates and things. By the sounds of things, if extra voice lines are added to the game, then the narrative designer is actually putting these along with the team into the game as well. It's an actual task on the narrative designer to do rather than something for someone else. So for those of you in the community who have been asking what Michael Chu did with all of his time, and I think that there was quite a lot already. Actually, here's an additional chunk of stuff in this job description, and we don't know, of course, how much this is exactly the same as what Michael Chu used to do, but it does show that there's a big chunk of behind-the-scenes work here that is not just sitting in a room writing voice lines or Overwatch story, for example. Now, bear in mind that this job description doesn't include other stuff that lead writer on Overwatch might have to do. For example, working with the team on animated shorts, writing short stories, as we've seen over the last year, couple of years or so, working with any teams writing things such as comics and similar. There's a lot of stuff probably on top of this role that isn't even in this job description. So a chunky amount of work then indeed, and an amazing role for someone, albeit big shoes to fill. What does it mean for Overwatch 2? Well, for me, reading this job description, as well as looking at the other whole bunch of Overwatch 2 positions available on the website, it confirms what, to be honest, I've known, and I think most people who have seen how Blizzard kind of works have known that Overwatch 2 is still nowhere close. This shouldn't be a surprise to people. Here, this job description says there's still very much work to do on the story of the missions, and there's a chunk of work that needs to be done on implementing and putting that together. Now, looking at Blizzard's open jobs list, there's about 15 different positions there. There's a game designer position with a focus that's needed a senior game designer. They need to be making enemy units fun. There's a character concept artist position, senior positions such as a senior animator, and an outsourcing supervisor specifically for Overwatch 2. You may not have known this, although a lot of skins, the ideas and the concept arting and things come from within the Overwatch team. Some Overwatch skins are actually not made within Blizzard. They're made by outsourced companies in Europe and in other places. So the art direction and guidance will come from Blizzard, and then the actual physical creation and crafting of the skin will take place elsewhere. Now, from the beginning of 2020, even before the events of the last few months and the world unfolded, a lot of people were hopeful, and indeed some people I still see at various places are hopeful that Overwatch 2 could come later this year. Now, I never thought this was going to be the case from BlizzCon 2019, and the way in which the Overwatch 2 team and the Overwatch team spoke about the game. Jeff, Aaron Keller in the Overwatch What's Next panel, in the Overwatch 2 announcement panel, there was a lot of talk about going quiet, and indeed they have been quiet on Overwatch 2 for quite some time, popping up to talk about continuing work on Overwatch as it is right now. Here's a few clips from the BlizzCon What's Next panel from 2019 that sort of show the tone that I feel has reflected on this all along. Now, I really get the optimism and the hope. I'd love it if Overwatch 2 is ready this year, but I just think realistically, when it was just announced in 2019, it was never going to be in 2020. And for those of you who want to point to that PlayStation Brazil tweet that's happened earlier this year, to me saying that, I just thought it was way too soon, and it wasn't even an accident. Sadly, I just think it was someone who didn't really know what they were talking about, or who got something confused. So what could this mean for Overwatch lore for the rest of 2020 and beyond? Well, we know that we're not getting any more heroes until Overwatch 2, and I am still hoping, I have nothing to confirm or base this on, by the way, other than a gut feeling that the very earliest that Overwatch 2 could be might be March, April, May of next year. Maybe a year from announce until launch. That would be quite a short time period, but I think that that's the very, very earliest we could expect it in 2021 May. Really, it could well even be later than that. In the meantime, for story, if a senior narrative or a narrative designer is appointed, then this could indeed free up other people within Blizzard and the Overwatch team, including Alyssa Wong, amongst other people, to be working on other pieces of Overwatch lore and or story. Now, don't forget, of course, we have the Orisa novel, The Hero of Numbani, from Nikki Drayden, Overwatch's first novel that hopefully, the state of the world pending, could still be out when its original time frame of the next couple of months. That was when it was listed for on Amazon to be coming out pretty soon. So we might have a nice little chunk of lore, albeit one that we've covered in little parts already, having a real deep insight into the world of Overwatch lore sometime soon. If that book is still out, and I'll try and give Blizzard a shout and see what the status is on it, I'll let you know if I can find anything concrete, that the Hero of Numbani in the novel will be our lore perhaps very, very soon. And then obviously you wouldn't release comics or new lore right at the same time as a novel. The Overwatch team or other members of the Overwatch team are freed up to be working on things such as short stories and things again. I'd be very, very surprised, speculatively, if we didn't get another skin and short story event before the end of the year. And who knows, maybe there are some gameplay things being worked on as well. And all in all, I feel that there is going to be some Overwatch lore and story happening, even if there is no hero over the next few months. So keep an eye out. The publicity shot of good old Wrecking Ball Sea Captain Hammeh skin himself amidst a watery backdrop has led some people to maybe speculate that maybe, even though nothing has been mentioned about it, we could get a new map this year. So there will always be some lore and story, as well as other content around that too, should it come to pass. However, it's going to be interesting to see where Overwatch goes, and particularly with the state of the world right now, what happens with BlizzCon eventually in November. Traditionally in past years, we have had around Gamescom, around summer season, a new map, and other content around that time, and then it's been the lead up to BlizzCon in November, roughly speaking. One thing that does make me wonder a bit about how Overwatch lore and story will progress certainly over the next few months, as well as, for me, just being a seal on the deal of Overwatch 2 not being this year, is a little thing called World of Warcraft. Now, World of Warcraft's Shadowlands expansion is due out by the end of this year, or certainly Q4, so let's say it's going to be very unlikely if it's not out by the end of 2020. It's an alpha right now. Warcraft fans, myself included, have been chomping at the bit to get into the alpha. I was very lucky to get in. So if you're a Warcraft fan, let me know what Warcraft content you might want me to have a little go at, be it on this channel or my second channel, in the comments below. The main implication for this is that Blizzard has a cross-franchise story development team. These people work on novels, on short stories, on comics, on art, on many different things in terms of bringing and supporting the worlds of Blizzard's games and bringing them together. Now, Diablo 4 is in development as well. World of Warcraft Shadowlands has to be, for Blizzard, really a smash hit. Battle for Azeroth, World of Warcraft's most recent expansion, has probably been seen by most in the World of Warcraft community as, well, from the vocal, certainly a bit of a mixed bag. Now, as a player of Warcraft ever since it launched in Europe, I've really enjoyed parts of this expansion, and I can also understand that some people have had frustrations with it. I won't go into all of those here. So, bringing all of this back, how does this affect Overwatch lore, story, and content? Well, I would put a penny to a pound in terms of a bet, if I was a betting man, that Blizzard will be devoting a big chunk of this cross-franchise story team and their time to making sure that there's some really cool stuff for the launch of Shadowlands. Now, Shadowlands' date has still not been fully set, but if it's going to be before the end of this year, and maybe a November-December release date is potentially likely, that takes up that team's time, or some of that team's time maybe, certainly for a few months beforehand. So with it being May right now, I think that we need to keep an eye out on Overwatch for the next 2-3 months, and then depending on if we see anything in the old Gamescom sort of midsummer window, we might be waiting till BlizzCon to hear more on Overwatch 2. That may well reflect on the world of lore, so maybe not the news in some ways that you'd like to be hearing, but I am still optimistic for more lore and story in the coming months. And these job postings, coming back to the narrative design position that this video started with, I think are a real piece of evidence that Overwatch 2 is ramping up, and there is a push forward for it to be sooner with us than maybe we would have expected, but probably not in 2020. Anything that happens in the world of Overwatch lore and story, here will be the place you can find out about it first, or very quickly, I promise you that. So do throw a like, subscribe if you enjoyed this video, and check out my different videos that I've been doing on different lore worlds within Blizzard, outside of Overwatch, other Blizzard games, and actually tabletop gaming and beyond. If you like this video, throw a like, subscribe, comment with what you think's been going on, comment with what you think about this news. I'd love to hear your thoughts, and thanks to my patrons on Patreon who make my videos possible and have indeed for some time. I am going to be trying a few different videos on the channel over the next few weeks, so do let me know what you think of those too, and check out all of my previous Overwatch lore interactions, voice lines, and coverage of Overwatch 2 and more in the playlist here. Cheers for tuning in. I've been Hammeh. Take it easy.